Welcome to the new Hegelian Philosophy channel. I'm very excited today to announce that my 12th book, The Most Common English Grammar Errors, explained through sentence diagramming, has been finished and is now available on Amazon for the extremely low price of just $8.99 paperback and $3.99 Kindle editions. This book is over 200 pages and features over 400 diagrams that systematically explicate the most common errors in the language of modern English through drawing on a vast archive of real-world examples. So one of the funnest parts about writing this book was I went through and found as many examples of errors as I could through a number of different sources that I read, including best-selling novels, textbooks, academic monographs, philosophy classics, etc., but also finding these in, say, pop song lyrics in songs from decades ago that contain errors like this, as well as social media posts, news articles, etc. So it was a lot of fun, once again, to actually write this book, to find the sort of errors that not only could be made, but actually have been, and to show through diagramming, which not only allows one to say in a long explanation with lots of jargon why something is incorrect, but to literally show it in a visual form that is much more unambiguous, to show not only what is quote-unquote wrong with these sentences, but also how to fix them. So I'd recommend you to make the investment of, hey, less than $10 to learn this skill, and for the rest of your life, make the investment now to spend less than what it would cost to get one meal at a fast food restaurant in the United States of America, and to learn these errors so you can avoid them for the rest of your life. Now, if you want a taste of a few examples that were covered within this book, let's take a look at the following sentence from Gun Island, a novel by the very famous and well-known Bengali author Amitav Ghosh. The sentence near the end of the novel is, the first to speak was a woman in a big, shabby-looking kaftan. Now, think for a moment about what's wrong, what's missing in this sentence. Now, pause the tape and we'll meet back in a moment. We can see that there's no subject, so it looks like the first is the subject. First looks like a subject just because it comes after the word the. But if we break the word down, we find that it actually does not contain any of the inflections of a word that could be the subject. The subject is supposed to be a noun or pronoun, but insofar as you can segment first into smaller parts. One of these is the ST, which is the superlative inflection, also seen in words like worst, tallest, nicest, most, best, etc., which shows it's an adjective or an adverb. You cannot add this inflection to words that are nouns. There's no such thing as the doggest or the cattest. So therefore, lacking the inflections of a noun, it does not have the plural S that you would see in dogs. This cannot be the subject, so the subject position is left totally blank. We therefore have to fix this by filling one in. We could just put something generic like the first person to speak was a woman. Another interesting example from a well-known novel is from near the beginning of Uncle Tom's Cabin. There's a scene in which a slave child is reunited with his mother after being separated, and it says there needed only a glance from the child to her to identify her as its mother. Now, it looks, once again, like there is the subject, but it cannot be because there is an adverb, not a noun or pronoun, so the subject position is left blank. It seems perhaps that you should fill that in with the child is the one who needed only a glance from itself to her, but it seems that in reality the word there is placed at the beginning in order to put this in the passive voice. What was left out in the process was the auxiliary verb was. So the participle was preserved, needed, but the author forgot to include a form of be, the helper auxiliary, which is also necessary to make something passive voice. So it should read, there was needed only a glance from the child to her to identify her as its mother. In a competition between the auxiliary and the participle. Obviously, the participle is more meaningful, but you do need both. So the idea that the auxiliary could be deleted as a redundancy was misguided in this particular example. Okay, if we consider an example from Pittsburghian English, they say things like, the car needs washed. Now, obviously, you can understand what that means. the car needs for somebody to wash it. But the problem with this is that it treats needs as a transitive verb, and it treats washed as its direct object. This, however, cannot be the case because washed is an adjective, not a noun, so it cannot be the direct object. The direct object needs to be a noun of something. So I need coffee. That's a meaningful sense. The car needs new tires. That's meaningful. So we can fix this simply through adding the adjective wash to the infinitive to be, making the whole thing a noun phrase, using the infinitive in this case as a sort of noun. So the car needs to be washed. One last example we'll consider here is the difference between like and such as. Now these are almost treated as synonyms, but they actually do mean something different. If I say like, I'm saying that something is similar to something else. So I could say there was mold on the strawberries, like fur on a dog. That's how long it was. In this case, the mold is like the fur, because they're similar to one another in terms of their appearance. So this use of the preposition like is valid. But if I say that the election will be decided by swing states like Michigan, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, well, then that use of like really doesn't work, because the swing states in 2024 were not similar to Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. No, the swing states simply were those states along with a few others. So I cannot use like, instead I use such as. The difference is that such as gives examples of something already introduced in more general terms. In this case, it's not actually a relation between two nouns joined by a preposition, like, rather they're appositives. They're different words for the same thing, and therefore diagrammed on the same line. As, in this case, is simply an expletive to introduce the list. So I could say that the restaurant serves many kinds of pasta, such as macaroni, spaghetti, rigatoni, fettuccine, etc. And for that reason, I would also say this year's election will be decided by swing states such as Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania. So if you want a lot more fun identifying errors and diagramming them, I would recommend you to get this book and work through it, and once again make that investment for the rest of your life to be very, very skilled in forming grammatical sentences and identifying erroneous sentences when you see them. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the book.